we're seeing technology quickly evolve, and pump technology is getting, smarter and smarter, and we're closing the loop even more. And then in MDI therapy, it kind of felt like we were being left in kind of the dark ages of pencil and paper, and all of the math we're doing in our own head, and we're responsible for keeping logbooks. And some of the things that I was really liked and kind of motivated about, maybe these are reasons I should go to a pump. And now I was seeing a lot of those being addressed through the Inpen. And so I actually started using it myself as a patient. And then I thought, well, maybe I can go work for the company that's helping to build this device, and just continue to iterate and evolve this solution further. So that's what drove me or led me to look into, so it was Companion Medical, where I went and I actually moved out to San Diego. I joined this startup company, and quickly after we were acquired by Medtronic, which was really exciting because, Medtronic has been the first. They've innovated in so many areas, from pumps to CGMs to their, the different predictive alerts and algorithms that they have. And so it was really exciting to join this kind of massive force and company and bring in this solution that really helps truly meet patients where they are. Whether it be, I want to be on MDI and I want to use a smart insulin pen, or I want to be on a pump.
Welcome to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. My name is Madison Smith, a certified nutritional health coach and the founder and CEO of Abundant Health with Melissa, where I help women with type 1 diabetes to feel more empowered and live their best life despite their diagnosis. Each week, I will bring conversations and strategies from guest experts and my experience living with type 1 for over 40 years now. So if you're a woman ready to redefine how diabetes can look and feel for you, then the Type 1 and Midlife podcast is the show for you. Well, today I am excited to talk with Madison Smith. She is a clinical systems engineering lead at Smart MDI Systems, and she brings clinical and research experience to drive user-centered product development at Medtronic. She connects user needs, research, and technology for future product development. And she previously worked at the University of Florida in pediatric endocrinology and diabetes research. And today in our chat, we'll talk about the Inpen. This is a smart insulin delivery device, an insulin pen that she and I are both using. I love it. I've been using this Inpen device for many years now, and I'm so excited to not only talk to somebody that is in the research end of developing this device, but she also lives with diabetes and uses this same device herself. So this is going to be an exciting thing just to talk about for all of the listeners here that want to learn more about MDI, why we choose it, and how this Inpen is really making a difference in how we manage the day-to-day. She will talk about Medtronic's diabetes devices, some other devices, and community needs, and our technology experiences. We share our own stories with that, and Madison's career inspiration in the diabetes space and her vision for the future. It's just remarkable, both as a researcher and now as a woman managing type 1, and how she can bring these two areas of things that mean so much to her and that can influence and impact so many of us. So we'll also discuss the joy of managing diabetes, believe that, when we have more efficient and devices like the Inpen that we're going to be talking about, and when we can find hope to serve the diabetes community, which is what we do here on this show. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Madison Smith. Let us know what you think. Nothing you hear on this Type 1 and Midlife podcast should be a substitute for professional medical advice. Please always consult your doctor before changing your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. Well, hello and welcome. This is Melissa. This is the Type 1 in Midlife podcast, and I'm your host. And today I'm so happy to welcome Madison Smith. She is here, and she's going to, I did allude a little bit into the, with the intro as far as her background and why she is here today. So welcome, Madison. So happy you're here to join us.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm very excited to be here with you today as well.
Yes. And well, tell us a little bit. I know you're not only a clinical systems engineering lead for the Smart MDI. This is a long, I love this. There's so much to this because there's so much to these products. So you're the clinical systems engineering lead for Smart MDI Systems with Medtronic diabetes. But you also manage type 1. So before we dive into all this wonderful technology, equipment and this Inpen that we're going to focus on today. So this is the smart insulin pen that I myself use and you use. So this is going to be an amazing conversation. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your own, I guess, diagnosis story and how you manage your diabetes these days.
Yeah. So, well, let's see. I'll go back to, I just celebrated my 15-year diabetes anniversary earlier this month. So I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old. At the time, I would just describe myself as a happy, healthy, very active 16-year-old. I was dancing. I was heavily involved with school and academic things. And it was my onset, I feel like it happened pretty quickly. I remember just that unquenchable thirst and waking up more frequently during the night and really, really tired. And I was actually, like I mentioned, I was a dancer. So I was in ballet class at the ballet bar. And you can imagine the music, that monotonous kind of soft tone playing. And I actually fell asleep standing up. And I kind of dropped down to my knees, and the class was over and I went home, and I remember telling my mom, I'm so tired. Can you believe it? I actually fell asleep during dance class. And she was looking at me and she just said, something doesn't seem right. You've been losing weight. I've noticed you're thirsty, you're hungry. And so she said, let's take you to the doctor. I think you might have diabetes. And we have no family history of type 1 diabetes. So I'm not even sure how she was so in tune to know that might have been it. But I was fortunate enough to go to my primary care doctor, and they did a finger stick, and they couldn't even read the glucose value at the time. It was so high.
Wow.
And thankfully I wasn't in DKA, so I wasn't hospitalized, but I went straight to an endocrinologist's office. And that's where they officially told me, yes, you have type 1 diabetes. And I did all of my education and training and learning in this long session. And I remember at the end of it, thinking, I've never even heard of type 1 diabetes before. And now I've got this diagnosis and this kit of insulin and syringes and all of these rules of what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. And I remember just feeling very kind of, okay, what does this mean for the rest of my life? I had plans and things that I wanted to do. And now what does this mean? And the nurse educator that I had been working with for the last 3 hours, she pulled out her insulin pump, and she told me she had type 1 diabetes as well. And she was training for a marathon. She was happy. She was healthy. She was smart. And that was the first kind of realization that I'm going to be okay. This is a diagnosis, but I'm going to live with, but I'm going to have to live with it. And I'm going to make the most of it. And I have this example in front of me of somebody that can live happy, healthy lifestyle. And so that to me was, it was the first day that this major life change happened. But at the same time, I saw this hope of what was going to be ahead of me.
What was possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And look at you now.
Yeah.
All that you're doing, not only technically, but all the people that you're helping to inspire. So tell us, are you currently, well, I know the answer to this because that's another reason why you're here talking with us today. Have you ever been on an insulin pump? Was that something that you were
Yeah, so
introduced anyone with?
I have been on an insulin pump. I've been on a few different pumps. Um, and pump therapy is a great solution that's
Mhm.
available for individuals, but when it came down to it, I just really preferred MDI therapy. And I
Mhm.
think that resonates with you as well.
It
But
sure
there was
does. Yeah.
something for me about when I put a pump on and I look in the mirror and I see myself kind of physically tethered to this device.
Mhm.
And that to me, I don't know, there's just something about it that made that diagnosis feel more almost real. Like I was
Yeah.
looking at this device that I knew kind of my life depended on. And that psychologically does something to me when I look in the mirror. And I just really like the freedom of MDI therapy and kind of, I don't have any problems taking injections. So for me, MDI is my preferred choice, but I have used pumps in the past.
Yes, yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I can say I've never used a pump. I know I talked about that with you before we hit record today, so I can't necessarily relate to that. That feeling. It just goes to show you how unique we all are, and it's nice to have choices, and we're so thankful. I know at Medtronic Diabetes, they have some amazing technology, not just the one that we're going to talk about today. But today we are going to talk about the Smart Insulin Pen. So the short name is the Inpen. So could you tell me, how are you connected with the actual technology and what is your role with the company? And then we can dive into all the different specifics that you and I both enjoy with the Inpen. Because I think, I get questioned a lot because we are maybe in the minority, those of us that are still doing daily injections. So there's a lot of questions as to, what's the difference? What's the difference between using a syringe and vials and, all those different choices that we used to have, or just the, I guess it was called quick pens is what I used to use, which is similar, but it doesn't have the technology. So tell us where you started and tell us a little bit about that technology, just to kind of
Yeah.
educate our listeners.
Yeah. So, a little, the background was, I was
Mm-hmm.
working as a nurse and I was a certified diabetes care and education specialist in a pediatric endocrinology office. And I, Inpen first became available and I was starting patients on this technology and training them on it. And I really, really loved what this technology was offering. You mentioned pump being sort of this gold standard, and we're seeing technology quickly evolve, and pump technology is getting, smarter and smarter, and we're closing the loop even more. And then in MDI therapy, it kind of felt like we were being left in kind of the dark ages of
Mm-hmm. I
pencil and
understand. Yeah.
paper
Mm-hmm.
and all of the math we're doing in our own head, and we're responsible for keeping logbooks. And some of the things that I was really liked and kind of motivated about, maybe these are reasons I should go to a pump, and now I was seeing a lot of those being addressed through the Inpen. And so I actually started using it myself as a patient. And then I thought, well, maybe I can go work for the company that's helping to build this device,
Mm.
and just continue to iterate and evolve this solution further. So that's what drove me or led me to look into. So it was Companion Medical, where I went and I actually moved out to San Diego. I joined this startup company, and quickly after we were acquired by Medtronic, which
Mm.
was really exciting because, Medtronic has been the first. They've innovated in so many areas, from pumps to CGMs to their, the different predictive alerts and algorithms
Mhm.
that they have. And so it was really exciting to join this kind of massive force and company and bring in this solution that really helps truly meet patients where they are, whether it be I want to be on MDI and I want to use a smart insulin pen, or I want to be on a pump and I want to use a closed loop system. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, and I was going to ask you before, but you just gave my question away, which is what inspired you. And it's very similar to what inspires me to coach people, because I get it. You get it. You understand the needs we have, how unique we can all be depending on our lifestyle and time of life and stage of life, all of those things. So you come with so much background and so young still too. So it's exciting to have somebody like you living with the disease that can represent and really be part of the technology that's going to keep coming. So what about the technology? You know what? Well, let's back up and let's talk about the Inpen. Let's go ahead. Okay. And you could probably do a better job because you've got the scientific language that I definitely don't. I can talk about it as a user, but if you can explain it to the average woman living with type 1 diabetes, or man, there's obviously men that listen to this podcast as well, just giving them kind of a overview of what the difference is.
Yeah. So when we talk about MDI, we're talking about people on multiple daily injections, and typically those injections are either delivered from vial and syringe or disposable insulin pens. So you dial your dose, you deliver it, and then once the insulin runs out, you throw that pen away. And what the Inpen, so when we think kind of like a system, so the first component is the hardware. So that is replacing your disposable pens with a year-long pen. And you change out actual cartridges. So there's little cartridges that come from the pharmacy that you pop into the Inpen, and that's where you get the insulin. And then the actual pen is what's good for an entire year. So once you pair it to an app, which I'll talk about the app separately, but once you pair it to the app, it wakes up the battery and it's good for 365 days. You don't have to charge it, which is nice because in today's world, there's so many different things that we have to plug in and keep charged. And so I love that aspect of not needing to charge it. And then it also delivers doses in half unit increments. So if you think, from my own management, probably in your experience as well, often you're like, okay, do I round up and potentially go low, or do I round my dose down and potentially run a little bit higher than I wanted to? But with half units, now we have a little bit more precision to get closer to our targets. So that's another feature that I really like. And then it also tracks insulin temperature. So when that pen has been exposed to temperatures outside of insulin storage guidelines, the pen is aware and it can alert the app. So then you as the user find out if it's been too hot or too cold. I'll just tell a quick personal story, which was I was inside. My pen was sitting on my desk and the sun was shining through the window. And you would never think, it's 70 degrees in my apartment, but the sun directly hitting that pen heated it up. And I got a notification to my app, which otherwise I would have never known. And when you use insulin that's been exposed to extreme temperatures, it can degrade that insulin and make it less effective. So for me, I was able to use that to know I can change out that cartridge and put in a new cartridge that's going to hopefully be working at the efficacy level that I expect of my insulin. So that's the hardware component. And then on the app side of things, what's really nice is it is tracking and logging every single thing I do. So when I dial a dose of insulin and I inject it, it logs that exact amount into the app with the time that I took it and the amount in up to like half units. So did I take 2.5 units? Did I take 5.5 units? And then it also has a dose calculator. So not to draw a similarity to a pump, but similar to the way you might think about a pump, you program in personal therapy settings. So what's my target? what's my sensitivity factor, or how does my blood sugar respond to a unit of insulin? And also, how do I manage my meals? So do I count carbs? Do I use fixed doses? So that all of that is programmed. And then the dose calculator helps to make dosing decisions. So it says, based on your current glucose and how much you're eating, you should take X units of insulin now. And so that might ring familiar for people that are used to using an insulin pump.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, that just reminded me, I love the insulin on board, right? Because it's letting you know, say you took 4 units with your breakfast, and it all does depend on the type of insulin and how long it lasts in your system. That's part of the programming, right? Yeah. And it lets I love that feature, because that's life and eating and exercise and all those things we have to factor into blood sugar control. Being able to look and see, oh, well, I've got 0.2 on board. I should be okay for, just like what you were saying, X, Y, and Z, because the information is it's so amazing. It's a nice, reliable thing to lean on and to depend on. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's one of my absolute favorite features is because if you look at, I'm coming from my educator background, like often we would tell patients on MDI that they need to wait at least 3 to 4 hours between doses before they can do something about a high blood sugar event. And so you think about, and I may be jumping the gun here, but you think about a CGM only experience where I'm constantly getting alerts that, let's say, my blood sugar is high. Well, some of those alerts, I just ate, or I just took a dose of insulin, or I just corrected that high blood sugar, and there's nothing that I can do about it. But with the Inpen, now I can help to decipher, like, what's a blood sugar I can actually engage with and take insulin dose for. And without the Inpen, often I was just waiting 3 to 4 hours because I didn't know how much insulin was still actively working in my body. But because we track the doses and we can, using some of those settings of like duration of insulin action, we can see how much is still remaining in your body, and you can safely calculate these correction doses between meals. Because the reality is, we don't get every meal right, whether it be miscounting carbs or there's some other variable thrown at us that day. You're stressed, your hormones are going crazy. And so it's been really nice to feel like I have the opportunity to engage more with my management in a safe and informed way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And can you share too, because I know Medtronic has a continuous glucose system. And I know that my Inpen, the one that I use and love, is connected to Dexcom, which is a CGM system. So I'm assuming that it does connect with Medtronic CGM as well, because that's another part of that software that's really nice.
So you mentioned Dexcom. So we do connect with Dexcom on a 3-hour delay. So that I'm sure that's part of what you experience is those CGM values do show up in the app, but there's a 3-hour gap between, your current value and then what's sort of like historically shown. And so that historical data is helpful for kind of looking back at prior doses, how your glucose has responded, and then it's helpful in the reports that are available. But with Medtronic CGM, we do offer a direct connection and integration, which provides that glucose value in real time. So on the home screen of the app, I see my current glucose in real time with the trend arrow. And the graphical display sort of on that home screen also shows me where I currently am with my CGM.
Okay. So, which makes sense, because it does make sense that your technology is synced a lot closer than, say, other CGM systems. But I do know this is, and I know you mentioned this, like in the software where we can key in our current glucose, which is part of that mealtime dosing calculator is what I call it. Again, if I'm messing up the terms, go ahead and correct me. I don't want to confuse anybody. But that is, it's easy to do that, when we can look at, and then, there's other CGM systems out there as well. So we can use that data, input it into the Inpen, and using that data, it's going to help us, it's still bringing in all of the information. It's still looking at insulin on board, looking at your current glucose, and then giving you, like you say, a recommended dose based on carbs. All those things we got to think about, right? All those pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I've done that I like is setting up, if you're an iOS user, like if you use an iPhone, setting up a widget. Are you familiar with widgets?
I've heard of them, but I can't say I use it. So
so you can you can add Inpen to your widget. And then depending on your CGM, oftentimes there's an option to set up a widget as well. But kind of quickly what that means is I can tap on my phone screen and I swipe over to the left and my widget is sitting there. And often I can see whatever my current glucose value is, but then I also see my Inpen app widget, which lets me know at a quick glance how much insulin is still actively working in my body. So I can see in the example you gave, maybe I'm about to go exercise and my blood sugar is 100, but I still have 2 units of insulin on board. Now I can be a little bit more proactive and maybe, have a snack before I go do something, because that 2 units might, is going to continue to work, and maybe on top of exercise compounding effect, I might go low. So that's a little trick that lets me kind of quickly see what's going on without even unlocking my phone.
Nice. So how do you, how are you seeing the technology evolving? Is that something that you can share with us?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of talk about my vision and the vision that we have within Medtronic. And so I think going a little bit back to one of the questions that you raised earlier is like, what is your role in Medtronic with this product? And I've been very fortunate and thankful that I've been able to be sort of a clinical voice within an engineering team. And I say this with the best intentions, that engineers can engineer anything, but let's help to make sure that we're engineering the right products that patients want to use and that make an impact on how they're actually trying to manage their diabetes on a day-to-day basis. And so, part of our goal is not to design technology that you want to, engage with all day. We're not trying to build an app that you want to spend all day looking at. We want to create technology that allows you to live more freely and also get good outcomes while you're doing it. And so if you look at the Medtronic pump portfolio, there's been a lot done to enhance algorithms and to bring meal detection technology and to really help personalize that dosing experience. And so I think, as a company and as a vision, we want to continue to enhance what MDI therapy means and the smartness that goes into it, and to help just, really bring a better personalized dosing experience to all users, whether you choose to be on MDI or a pump.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the options are amazing. So what does it mean to you to be able to spend less time? You just brought this up, managing that. It's nice to have something that you can kind of set and go, something that we don't have to micromanage all day. So what is it? And maybe this is something that you've heard from patients, people that you work with, or I'm not sure how close you are with the patients of Medtronic and all that they're connecting with within the company. But so what does that mean? for us to have some freedom, right?
Yeah. I mean, a big one stands out to me is like this mental burden. And maybe this resonates with you, but I didn't realize how much I would appreciate the Inpen until I used it. And an example that I give is, and anybody can relate to this. How many times can you not remember if you locked your door or if you unplugged the iron or you turned off the stove? And in all these situations, you're just living your life. You're going, life is fast paced. And if you can't remember if you locked the door, you go back and you check and you see that it's locked, or you can visually look at the stove and you see that it's turned off. Or nowadays you can check your smart app and see what appliances did you leave on. So there's all these ways that we can like confirm or sort of visually have the confidence that we remembered to do something. And with injection therapy before, we had no way of knowing. And it's like, we're taking this medication that has severe implications if we take it twice or if we don't take it on the high and the low side.
That's true.
And so this is the first technology that's been brought to the market that now gives us as, patients on MDI therapy, the confidence to know what we took and when we took it. And it sounds so simple, but it has alleviated so much of that mental burden. I can just live my life and go. And if I can't remember, I can look at my app.
Totally
and it's
agree.
the first time as patients with diabetes we've had that opportunity.
Yeah. And that brings back memories. I was diagnosed in 1982 and we were still using little log books back in those days. And of course it was, it was vials of insulin and syringes that were disposable, of course. And, we didn't know what we didn't know. You deal with what, you work with what you have, the tools that you have now. So it's just amazing to see where we've come. And, I think what you just mentioned really, it made me think a little bit more, because like you say, it's easy to take it for granted when we have it, whether it's an insulin pump or this technology. But I think it's important to really appreciate just the headspace that it kind of opens up for us to be able to work and enjoy our life and our families, and not to be burdened by the numbers or just like you say, it's a huge win. And
I was recently sitting next to an endocrinologist. So I was at a conference and he very big thought leader in the field. And I told that story about how, having the confidence to be able to look back and know that I took my medication, when I took it, how much I took. And he told me a story that, he used to talk to some of his patients and say, what do you mean you can't remember whether or not you took that dose of insulin? And then he admitted that then later on in life, he had to start taking, I don't remember it, let's say a blood pressure medication. And it was once a day, one pill. And it was his first time like needing to remember to take something and not having a way of knowing whether or not he took it. And he said, I was embarrassed that I ever at any point was judging my patients for not remembering whether or not they took their insulin. And that was
very humbling,
pretty eye-opening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good story. Nice. I love that. So is there anything else that you would like to share about, I think we covered it pretty much from A to Z as far as what people could think. What about reaching out to doctors? I know I think I mentioned earlier too, or maybe I mentioned it before we hit record today, that I work with a lot of women with type 1 diabetes. So that's what I do as a coach. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. But as somebody living with this disease, it comes up because patients just naturally want to know what I do. And I'm very free to share what's worked for me. I share different types of insulin. This is information for them to take back to their doctors, because generally speaking, they don't all, we can't know everything. We can't be aware of all the different technologies and what's available to us. I think they really appreciate that real life example of what they could talk to the doctor about. And I can't even tell you how many patient or clients I have right now that have been able to go and have that conversation with the doctor and get on an Inpen. I'm about 50-50 as far as clients. I have some that are on insulin pumps and some that are on MDI, but the ones and some of them are newly diagnosed too. So that's a lot to accept that time of life when they've got a lot of decisions to make about their care. And to know that this is an option if they're not quite ready to get on an insulin pump, and to feel supported with that. Yeah.
So I think with diabetes, it's a unique sort of diagnosis or disease where patients have a lot of empowerment in their own management and choices. When you think about maybe you need a pacemaker, you're not often going in and saying, hey, this is the pacemaker I picked out. It's more like, okay, this is the procedure and this is what I need. But with diabetes, you have to engage with this disease and injections or using a pump or a CGM 24/7. So I think we have the right to advocate for the things that we want. And I've seen a lot of successful, even in my own experience when I was in clinic, patients coming and saying, hey, I read about this, I heard about this online, can you tell me more about it? Or I'm interested in this. And obviously can't speak for everybody's experience with their healthcare provider, but I do think patients, we should be empowered to kind of advocate for what we need and what we want.
Sure are. Yeah. And it's, it shows like mine and all the other amazing resources out there that we can find help and I think the best referral is other people. And there's a lot of us living with type 1. So, no matter what that technology that you think that you need or you want to learn more about, it doesn't hurt to ask and see what everybody else's experience is with it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So what's giving you hope right now serving the diabetes community?
Yeah. So, I guess let's think. There's a few areas. So, something personally that, because we've had actually Inpen available in the United States since December of 2017. And so I, have had an opportunity with my colleagues to look into, let's say, some of the data and for the first time really see what's going on with MDI therapy and better understand, what are the behaviors or sort of what are patients on MDI therapy that are achieving success? What does success look like? And kind of, is there a key or like a formula for how we can get there? And I'll share a little bit of my insights from what I've learned, which have to do a lot with the timing of boluses and taking your insulin with meals. And I know it sounds, maybe a lot more simple than it is, but in reality, we've seen that boluses are often missed. And I think, maybe we only talk about breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but the reality is, maybe at the office, there's a platter of cookies out, or you grab a coffee, or, we graze, that we do. And something that's been closely tied to improvements or good outcomes, so to speak, is the importance of taking your bolus with your meal.
Yeah.
And if you can,
timing is important, isn't it? It sure
exactly.
is.
Exactly. But that's been one of the strongest things, is that if you can take your mealtime bolus at your mealtime, then outcomes are really good. And so it's not to say that you can't get there on MDI therapy. You can. And then I think also what's been tremendous is the amount of data that now we as patients, I say you and I, and maybe some of your other listeners, we can bring these really robust reports into our endocrinology office or into our healthcare provider appointments. And so I know personally, as an educator on one end and then as a patient on the other, I spent a lot less time trying to describe, no, that high blood sugar was because of X, Y, and Z. Like, less time trying to put together the puzzle for the provider, and more time kind of getting down to really what's going on. Do I need to make an adjustment to my therapy settings? Yeah. Do we need to try, adding another therapy? Maybe I need to go back and get a refresh on carb counting because maybe I'm just, it's been too long. So that to me has been, something I think that eye-opening that we can look forward to is finding kind of what does the formula for success look like? And then when we are meeting with our healthcare providers, we can talk about the things that matter most and not just, what are your typical doses? How many units do you take in a day? What happened here when your blood sugar went high?
Yeah. It's, the data it's just so helpful, data in itself, because that's how we grow. That's how we make better decisions. And that's how we can correct what didn't work the first time. Hopefully we're paying attention and we can learn from it. Yeah, that is so true. And something else that the software does, and you might have mentioned this, but it just reminded me when you were talking about reminding the reminders is that we also put in our long-acting therapy. So it gives you that reminder. So I know with myself, it's 7 a.m., so you get that reminder. Did you take your Tresiba dose? That's what I use. And just like you say, because I've had recent clients that have texted me later in the day and say, oh no, I think I forgot to take my long acting. What do I do? And this is kind of a story too. Now I'm thinking about how all this unpacked. Because she still didn't know, because she at this point, she is still using paper and pencil, and God love her, because we all have our own ways of tracking what we're doing. So I said, well, did you check, did you notify, because you get the notification in your Inpen? Well, I don't usually use that. So I think it was a reminder that it was something that she can rely on to have a better idea of whether or not that that 24-hour dose was taken. So we at this point we still don't know, but she had to kind of make some therapy settings that whole day just to kind of compensate, and then she got on track eventually. But anyway, lesson learned. But
it's exactly, and it's a good point, because the Inpen is used for rapid acting insulin, so it's that mealtime insulin, but it still allows you to program what for you, Tresiba, me as well. But like, what's your long-acting insulin? How many units do you take? What time do you take it? And then you get that reminder consistently every day. And then with, a single button press, you log it in the app. And the notification clears and you go on with your day.
I know. I love it. Another thing, and I know maybe we're going backwards, but I keep thinking of all these benefits. But it also lets you know when your insulin is aged.
Yes.
So I believe it's either 28 or 30 days. I forget the number. I should know 28. This.
28.
Is it 28? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And because I don't know about you, because I don't generally go through a whole cartridge in a month. So it does tend to hit 28 days before I'm done with it. But it is so helpful, because usually once I get that notification, and I always leave it up on my pen, just again as a reminder that, hey, you're 28 days old. I'll call it old insulin, or it's starting to lose its effectiveness. But I will notice how my insulin sensitivity will start to drop soon after that notification. So it's time to change it out. So again, that information. Otherwise, we would be just kind of trying to figure it out. Why is this happening? So helpful.
It goes back to that idea of burden, right? So let the system take on some of those burdens for you. And so you can just live your life and go forward, and you can trust in the system to let you know your insulin was exposed to high temperatures, or if you've been using it for more than 28 days.
Yes. Yes, really good stuff. Well, thank you. So what's you personally, what keeps you going managing type 1? You're obviously in the community and on the technical side and the personal side. So you yourself, I mean, do you feel like you're just if you've got it really synced in, you're feeling confident with your own lifestyle and how are things feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes if you look back at let's say my credentials, you would think, she's got to have it all together. But I mean, the reality is it's diabetes. Does anybody have it? Does anybody
You're human.
have it?
That's
Exactly.
right. No one's perfect. That's
Exactly.
for sure. Yeah.
And we know there's different types of, let's say, patient profiles or management styles. And for me, I mean, the importance for me is in finding a healthy balance. So, I do what I can, but I also still put myself and my happiness and my quality of life first. And I mean, I've just really enjoyed what the Inpen has been able to offer me in terms of that. But the reality is it's not like I'm sitting here with the perfect A1C and I never have high blood sugars, but I know that this device has my back and the system has my back. And so all of those things help me just to kind of live more freely
live more freely. Yes. That's a beautiful quote. I love that. Well, thank you. Madison, do you have anything else that you'd like to share? I hope that the listeners learned a lot and that they're interested in learning more about this technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot. I think we did. There's probably some resources that we could provide, if anybody wanted to follow up and just learn a little bit more about it or how to even put in a request for these devices. I'm sure we can connect you guys to some of that stuff.
We will definitely be listing all of this right here in the show notes. So definitely. So thank you, Madison. We appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure to get to know another Inpen user. So we got a little club going. I love it. And yes, we will definitely link Medtronic Diabetes. I know you're on Instagram, Medtronic Diabetes. I follow you on there, and of course your website. So we will link all of the helpful tips and the avenues that listeners, if you're interested in learning more, can take to learn more. And we appreciate it. Thanks again for sharing your story and your information and all that you're doing for our community and the technology. Very, very grateful.
Thank you, Melissa. It's been great. It's been great. And I really appreciate the conversation. It's always nice to talk to another fellow Inpen user and person living with diabetes.
Yes. Look here in the show notes to stay connected. And again, we will see you back in here next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to the Type 1 and Midlife podcast. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right here on iTunes. And you're invited to connect with our Type 1 and Midlife community on the free Honey Health app. Here we discuss the podcast topics in a group chat, a chance for you to ask questions and take action on what we share here on the show. You can find the app link to download for free right here in the show notes. And for free resources, you can visit me at abundanthealthwithmelissa.com. And your support means so much. Thank you.